Welcome to this evening, and thank you all for joining us. For those of you who don't know what TAP India is, TAP is the art platform India. We launched in September, and this is a collective of galleries. We are endeavoring to make this the one-stop platform for all art in India, for events, for talks, for gallery exhibitions, etc. And we've always had lovely speakers. We've had very interesting speakers at every one of our talks. We have TAP Live and TAP Talks. TAP Talks is what we're doing today, which is almost always on Zoom. And we talk to collectors, we talk to museum curators, we talk to artists, we talk to everybody who we are going to learn from and take something away from. And it's a way for us to get to know more about the art world. And we've always had very eminent speakers. And today I'm very honored to have two lovely ladies who are also two very, very good friends. And it's very difficult to introduce both of them. However, I'm going to do the honors and introduce both Rajshree Pathy and Amrita Jhaveri. Both of them have been involved in the arts for many, many years. So very quickly, let me introduce Rajshree. Rajshree Pathy she founded the India Design Forum in 2012 as a catalyst to promote innovative design thinking and create an awareness for the power of design. IDF India's objective is to enable strategic alliances, encourage dialogue between academia and industry, and facilitate cross-cultural design thinking and application. Rajshree has earned many accolades and recognitions in her career, including the prestigious civilian award Padma Shri. In 2016, she curated Chakraview, a highly acclaimed presentation as India's official entry into the inaugural London Design Biennale. Weaving together India's cultural heritage using traditional textiles and ancient mythology with contemporary evocation, Chakraview successfully portrayed India's design trajectory. Speaking on her relationship with art, she says, I do not wish to be defined as a collector. I buy art that responds to my current state of mind, which jumps at me the moment I see it. And I can say more of this for Rajshree because she's got a great eye. And then going on to Amrita, who also is a very, very, very accomplished lady. And this introduction is very short. Amrita has been involved with the commercial art world in India since the 1990s. She established the Christie's office in India and initiated auctions of modern and contemporary Indian art. In 2000, Amrita Jhaveri moved to London and began working with private collectors and museum curators on aspects of modern and contemporary South Asian art. As an independent advisor, Amrita has created and managed private and corporate art collections, ambitious artist projects, and large-scale commissions. In 2010, Amrita founded Jhaveri Contemporary Art in Mumbai, which is a very prestigious gallery which shows a lot of young and established artists from South Asia. I don't think I should say any more and let these two lovely ladies talk. So girls and ladies, I don't know whether to call you girls or ladies because I've known you, most of the last 30 years. So let's give it over to both of them. Come on, let's hear from both of you. And thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Sharan. And thank you, Raj. It's great to see you all here. I think I'm going to just share my screen now. Let's see if I can do this. Can you see it?
Not yet, Amrita.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. Sonu, it's wonderful to be here and with TAP.
What about now?
For this, yeah.
Yes, it's perfect now. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for the introduction, Sharan, and for inviting me to speak to Raj. We've all been friends, as you said, for many years now, but I don't think we've ever really engaged in a structured talk before like this. So I guess I just want to say, if we banter on, you'll just have to forgive us, because we've known each other a very long time. I chose this particular image to begin with this beautiful mural in the background, as it gives us an opportunity and gives Raj an opportunity perhaps to talk about her background, which is anchored in South India. So Raj was born into a business family, which has over generations built several educational and philanthropic institutions in Coimbatore. They also had deep roots in cotton spinning, and her father ran 2 textile mills as well as a fledgling sugar business, which she inherited. So Raj, maybe you can tell us a little bit about growing up in Coimbatore and about your early exposure to art and culture.
Thank you, Amrita. It's great to be with all of you. I am a Coimbatore girl. I grew up all my life here. My mother had a great sense of aesthetics, and it was extraordinary because in her times, she built a home that we grew up in, which was completely Bauhaus. It was terribly modernist. And I remember looking around and thinking, my house looks very different from everyone else's. And she was very influenced by the Sri Lankan architect, Valentin Gunashekara. And I believe he was instrumental in designing our parents' home. So we grew up with, original editions of the Corbusier chaise longue, the Mies van der Rohe single chairs, the Eero Saarinen's womb chair, and the Eames. Every evening, my father would have his drink in front of the library, lounging in his white, crisp dhoti with sitting on the Eames chair. And that is a sight I can visualize even now, so many years later. The house had glass bricks, which was very modernist. And she had an amazing eye. Because we were in the textile business, we were very close to many of the families in Ahmedabad, like the Sarabhais and the Lalbhais. And we used to be traveling very often to Ahmedabad. So the aesthetic was very different from the conventional South Indian aesthetic or Indian aesthetic for decoration. We did not have any decoration, but we had interesting objects of art. And my mother also traveled a lot to Bombay because of the textile relationships. And she used to visit Chemold then and buy some pieces of art. So I guess, I grew up with all of this surrounding me, and which is why I was very interested in design and architecture. So here you see Sharan. Sharan was one of my earliest influencers in contemporary art. And this is a wonderful moment. Sharan, I wonder if you remember these lovely evenings and soirees in Paris with Shakti Berman at his home, and his lovely wife, Mete Datel. And, so I had these amazing friends, Sharan Aparao, then there was Geeta Mehra of Sakshi, there was Sarla, Mrs. Daruwala. All of these were closest art galleries for me from Coimbatore in Chennai. And Sharan, of course, has been a friend since then.
Raj, can I interrupt and just ask you something? Because I read somewhere, because I was going through all the several interviews that you've done over the many years, and I read somewhere that you were actually keen on studying architecture yourself, and that at 17 you wanted to go to JJ School of Art, which is interesting. This is something I didn't know and we've never discussed before. I also read somewhere that in your teens you borrowed money first to buy your first Hussein from Mrs. Daruwala at Sarla Art Gallery, which was like one of the only galleries in those days. So tell us how you kind of what happened about your architectural studies and how you began collecting art especially with modern art, I'd say.
My first love remains architecture, Amrita. And I was always interested in architecture because of my home and the furniture that my mother had. So when I applied to the JJ School of Architecture in Bombay, and we're going through the process of the admissions, and my mother instantly, sort of coerced my father into not sending me away from Coimbatore. She said, if I go to Bombay, the big bad city of Bombay, I'd possibly never return to Coimbatore. So I was very annoyed, and then I decided that I wouldn't just do what my parents wanted me to do, which was to do a bachelor's in commerce without my heart in it. But I decided I would always be close to architecture and design and art.
Yeah.
So, yes, when I was 16, I borrowed, 12,000 rupees from my mother because the pocket money then was about 5,000 a month. And my mother said, so what are you doing with this? I said, well, I've seen this really wonderful piece of work in Chennai at the Sarla Art Gallery, and it's a lovely horse, and it's some important artist apparently called Hussein. I had no idea who Hussein was, but I just loved the work, and it was a large work. It still hangs at home. It's about 4x4, and one of the most nicest work from Hussein.
Yeah.
And that's how my journey with art began.
Yeah, so sadly, I haven't got the image of the Hussein, but what I have got are a few images of yourself with a lot of these, which are now known, very well-known artists across India. And it's just interesting to see that a lot of this was, you had warm and it was a very social environment. And these were people, obviously, a lot of them you probably met through Sharan, because they were artists who Sharan showed. So here's a picture of you with Jahangir Sabawala. Maybe you want to talk about this, because here's an artist that maybe not everybody recognizes, but who has come to the fore again recently because of the work of one of our young galleries in India.
Yes, I must say Sharan has been a major influence and a sister to me in art. We've had wonderful, wicked, exciting moments traveling the world, visiting artists in and out of India and within India. And those are the good old days. Yes, this is Piraji Sagara, a brilliant artist, and very undermined in India. I bought this work at that moment in Ahmedabad years and years ago, and it still fascinates me. This is, I think, to me, very deja vu of European art as well at some point. But I think it's quite extraordinary. I have many marble sculptures of Piraji as well.
Yeah, he was extremely popular in the 70s. And I think my parents too have work by Piraji. Here's another image of you in Raza's studio in Paris. So it seems like everywhere you traveled, you made it a thing to go and visit artists in either in their studios or to visit exhibitions. So I imagine that a lot of your buying and acquisitions and your relationships with artists was partly because of your travel, which was, I assume, on this as well.
You know, I believe that art is not just about the piece of work. I think it's about relationships. For me, it's very important, these personal relationships. Every time I look at a piece of work that I've purchased 30 years ago, or whatever, it's those moments. As I see this photograph, I can relive that precise moment with Raza, the laughter, the bonding, the stories, sitting down with them, listening to stories of their contemporaries. I think this particular evening, Sharan probably took that photograph. Raza was speaking to us about Amrita Jhaveri, and wonderful anecdotes and so on. As he painted, he autographed that poster for me. And yes, and he would say, "Man, look at this." He would hide artworks under his bed. And I would say, "Raza, why are you hiding all this art?" He would say, "Because all the galleries are coming tomorrow morning and I wouldn't know what to give who, because they're all my friends and they'd all be fighting over what they want. So I'm hiding them. I'm going to take one out when, when someone comes from Delhi and other galleries comes from Bombay." So, it was filled with these anecdotes. For me, art is not just about the work. I realize it is about personal relationships with all these wonderful people.
It also takes us back at a time when the environment between galleries was very collegial, and there was no kind of this gallery represents this artist, so you can't, there wasn't any of those, that formality, which is now kind of the current situation, I'd say, in the art world. And that time, I remember that you could get razas from Sharon, and you could get them from, Vadera, and you could buy them in Bombay through, I guess, Pandols or Chemold, because those were the main galleries, or through other dealers. But it's interesting, here you see what one really identifies as Raza's works in the studio. But when we look at what you ended up buying by Raza, one of the works, it is very, very distinct. So I'd like to just bring in kind of something that I've noticed while putting this presentation together, is that when you select works, they always seem to be works that are not in the mainstream often, and seem to be a little bit different. And here you see it's your Raza is very beautifully put together with your sofa and lights, and the entire environment is really well put together. Another picture of you with the next kind of generation of artists, I'd say, and here's a picture of Rameshwar Bruta and Vasundhara and yourself. And when I started saying you pick works that are very particular, here's the next one I wanted to show you. So you see a classic Bruta in the background. And then here is the work by Bruta that you've selected in your home in Delhi, which is much more abstract. It has this kind of hard-edged element, and then this fleshy, soft, rather phallic element. The coffee table, as a lot of the tables in your home, have been designed by Nirmala Rudra, who is also your cousin, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And the bow, so there's that.
Yes, I as I said earlier, when a piece of work jumps at me, it's when I know that it's for me.
What I'm saying is that they're not always the sort of images you identify necessarily immediately with that art. I mean, I'm sure this was quite a bold work to acquire when you did.
Yes, it was. It was indeed a bold work, and not many people quite understood it those days. They would walk into my house and say, "What's this tree trunk doing on your wall?" I mean, So yes, but that's what I like. I like provocative art. I like art that speaks, that creates, that is not too simple.
Let's move on quickly from your life in Coimbatore. By this time, I guess you're married, you have children, you've spent quite a long time in Coimbatore, and then you move to Delhi. And this is a picture of you in your apartment in Delhi. So when did you actually move to Delhi, and what was the spur to move to Delhi?
Well, as I started, getting more and more into my business, I felt that I needed to be away from Coimbatore. I needed to grow intellectually as well. Many of my design friends and my art friends. And I'm a city girl. I need the city. I need the buzz of a city. And you put me in a mountain, the clean mountain air will kill me. I rather be in the city and you know, meet all these exciting creative people. And I remember a couple of friends said to me, why don't you just move to Delhi? And I thought from Coimbatore to Delhi is a huge jump. It's almost like a transcontinental jump in terms of cultural, you know, values and all of it. But I made the jump, and I'm so glad I did. I've been in Delhi for more than 27 years now. That's a long time. Yes, this was one of my my early apartments there.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about these three sculptures which we see here, Rajshree?
Okay, so the red one is a Chinese artist called Chen Wenling, and it's actually a bronze that's lacquered red in that beautiful Chinese red. And there's a story there, Amrita. So I was trying to build a business in Vietnam, and I used to be going very often to Vietnam. And I always pop into any gallery that's close. And I was in Singapore on an overnight at the hotel. So I popped into a gallery there, and I saw this amazing, piece of work. And I just bought it, and those days you can buy and just ship them, and there were no problems with, you know, shipping. And I've become very good friends with the girl who sold that work to me many, many years ago, but 13 years ago. And her name is Jazz Chong, and she runs a very successful gallery called O2 Art now. And the other one you see is the man that's hanging, which is Jahangir Jhani. I'm particularly fond of that work. I have no reason to be particularly fond of anything. I'm just particularly fond of things. And I love that work. It's a resin with gold paint on it. And the one on the right, you see, is an early Bose, the very colorful books that he painted. I like that very much. And I don't know if you can see the sculpture at the bottom near my feet. And that is a bronze by Shanti Swarupini. And there is a small reflection there as well, which is Bala Subramaniam's very early work again, called the Glowing Embers, which is again quite extraordinary.
So I just want to quickly move on from your first apartment to then you're taking on a freestanding 6-bedroom house in Golf Links. And I mean, you talk about how the house was really dark and uninviting. And if you could talk a little bit about how you transformed it, because here it looks extremely inviting and not dark at all.
Well, I chanced upon this house. I always wanted a house in Delhi with a little garden so I can have my lovely soirees where I would invite artists and performers and, you know, policymakers and journalists, and have these wonderful soirees where everybody would just sort of melt into each other's conversations, and wonderful things would happen for all of them. You know, for instance, artists would be speaking to policymakers and they'd be complaining about what should be done for artists, and, you know, people would hear and see that, you know, they can make a difference. So my houses have always been open homes, and so I wanted a home. So I picked up this home, which was, I think, built in the late 50s and early 60s, and broke open the 6 bedrooms. It was very, very dark. There was no source of light at all. And I broke open the rooms, the walls, and broke the terrace, and let in a lot of light come in and flood. And I opened out and put the glass bricks that I had growing up in my parents' home. So I lined up the entire facade of the house with glass bricks. So allowing the north light to come in, the east light to come in, and the house and all white. So, you know, the dark house
Yeah.
Really, with no ventilation and light, became a very light, happy, entertaining space.
Yeah. And here it's quite interesting because I see that you've moved from having all those classic modern artists straight into contemporary art. Here with Jitish Kalat's wonderful Rickshawopolis from, I think, 2005, TV Santosh, and then combined it with a 1956 Fornasetti signed cabinet, and again a table with black cut glass designed by your cousin Nirmala Rudra.
Yes, that is a brilliant painting, and one of my favorites, the one of Jitish's. It just sort of it encompasses the entire Indian life into that one large canvas, you know. And the Fornasetti is exceptional as well. It is an original. It is a signed one, and my cousin Nirmala is extremely creative, and she would only do one piece of a kind. And when I was thinking what I need to do in this house for a dining table, she came up with this brilliant idea. The entire table is is cut glass, and she made it with workmen and craftsmen from I think Jaipur and somewhere in Rajasthan, and the legs are beautiful, and I just had Italian chairs. You know, I love architecture, I love design, and I love art. So you'll see this, and the skeleton chair that you now see is actually in a museum in New York. It was designed by Michael Aram, who is a very dear friend of mine, and he used to live a lot and work out of Delhi. He still works out of Delhi, but lives more in New York now. He's made some brilliant pieces, and to me, that is really an iconic piece of sculpture from Michael Aram.
Yeah, I just want to point out the Mehreen Murtaza as well that you see there, and then on the right, the glass bricks that Raj talked about, and this large painting by Pratul Dash. So I think this entire home is completely white. I mean, white floors, lots of natural light. And then this is my favorite bit of the house, which is the most fabulous powder room in the whole of Delhi, which is very different with a Chinese cabinet. And I'm just going to cycle through these images a little bit quicker. You see this wonderful diptych by Bharti Kher. And Raj, please interrupt me if you want to talk about any of the works specifically. And then you can see a picture by, a small sculpture or a bar of soap, in fact, which was part of an installation by Shilpa Gupta here, which I guess you must have, this was an installation where viewers were encouraged to come in and pick up one of the pieces. So I have one as well from her show in Bombay. Where did you pick up yours, Raj?
I think at the show, Amrita.
Bombay. In Bombay.
Yes, in Bombay.
And then moving on in a completely different register, we go up the stairs, and this is didn't want to put in an image of your bedroom, but this is your dressing room, which is completely different in tone. And I just want to know a little bit about where you found these wonderful doors.
Well, the house is a bit narrow. It looks larger than it actually is. So I needed to expand the space. I couldn't have two rooms, a bedroom and a bathroom. That would make the space very small. So instead, I just made it one long room, and I put the shower room and the steam room all together in that black granite glass cube right in the middle. It acts as a partition to the to the basin and the toilet, and it gives you a lot of privacy this way. I love tribal art. I love
More
indigenous
traditional art. Here's another view of one of your guest bathroom. And there's two views, in fact, and one with a painting by Alexis Kersey. And this very striking use of red and white stripes, which again connects to what you see right across South India outside, painted on the walls of temples. So I love this mix of having traditional elements that you then really make your own and make contemporize, but use them in completely different contexts. So I would never imagine a temple wall in a bathroom in a way. So.
Well, to me, bathrooms are beautiful living spaces and spaces that we go into, which are very private and where we spend those few minutes to ourselves and pamper our bodies and have that private time. I don't see bathrooms as something that are, places that are not to be enjoyed or time to be spent on. So I just use the aesthetic wherever I feel it works.
Yeah.
And for me, it worked there. And Amrita, I never have ever used an architect or an interior designer ever in any of my projects.
That's fantastic. Now, I just wanted to focus a little bit on your interest in traditional art as well, and look at these two works by Tallur, which take from classical and pre-modern art, I'd say. There's Deepa Sundari on the right, and this one that's enigmatically called 0 + 0 = 0 - 0.
Well, I bought the first work much before I bought the bronzes.
Okay.
For me, when I saw that work exhibited, it was at the Lalit Kala Academy at Delhi. And, it's a very dynamic work because you switch the motor on and as long as you keep it running, there's bits of her head being shaved off.
Oh, okay.
So there's a saw.
Do you still have it? Do you still have the sculpture?
I do. It's just come back. It was in New Jersey, actually, at an art exhibition. And it's been in New York for a year, and it's just come back.
Yeah.
But yes, we don't. Mercifully, they didn't run it all the time. But when you do run it, it just kind of keeps shaving your head off. And for me, it was it said a lot of things. It said a lot about the state of women, of womanhood in India, and also the nature of the sacrificial nature of the feminine self, in a way that you're willing to cut your head off, so as to say, for the sake of the family. So many things. That sculpture said a lot to me.
I just want to move on to another piece by Subodh Gupta called Twins, which you have two tiffin carriers carved in white marble on a cement pedestal. I think I seem to read somewhere that you have to, when you come across this work, viewers sort of circumambulate this artifact in order to view it, which sort of heightens its reverential quality. So it's an everyday object. It sort of makes me a little sad to look at these, because I was just reading an article in the FT the other day about how all the dabbawalas in Bombay are out of business now and have no future because the trains weren't running and the offices were closed because of the pandemic. So it's a work that was made, I think, I'm not sure what the date of this piece is, but it really has a kind of resonance even today, which is interesting.
It is one of my favorite pieces, and like most of his works, Subodh Gupta's work brings us in touch with the realities of everyday Indian life.
I just wanted to quickly move you back to Coimbatore. and this, where your business is based, and where you have a sort of resort-like house, which is spread over 25 acres of coconut plantation. And these are just some views of the house. I don't know if you want to speak about any specific works here, or we should move on, because I think we're getting where we have to keep an eye on our time as well.
Well, the first work is the Yoni table, and this was again a commission that my cousin Nirmala Rudra did in Mahabalipuram with one of the traditional temple sculptors. And I loved it so much that I bought it off her many decades ago. The reclining granite lady is from a good friend, Dr. Raj Tyagarajan, who, like me, was a creative person, also doing business. So he was a banker, and he was a wonderful artist, a very creative sculptor, and he worked out of Mahabalipuram as well. And the other one, the buxom lady, is my traditional temple sculptor in Mahabalipuram trying to be Salvador Dali.
So here we go into the house, and you've got some works by Balasubramaniam, Rekha Rodwitya, and again a table by Nirmala.
Yes.
Once again. And this is exactly where you're sitting. You're probably sitting on one of these cartel chairs with with your Ravinder Reddy in the background, and looking through into the kind of outdoor space. You've got a Burmese lacquer object, and many of us have these wonderful, gilded, large Ravinder Reddys. They've almost become a kind of a statement for an art collector now. But you've also got a really wonderful Ravinder Reddy, which is here on the left-hand side, which is a very early terracotta work. Did you acquire that much earlier?
That work was acquired those years from Chennai, when I used to be doing the rounds between Apparao galleries and Sakshi and Sarla. And I picked this up, it was with Geeta Mehra, and picked it up for barely nothing. And I think, to me, it's one of my most prized collections from the quality of the work to just the exquisiteness of the terracotta patina on it.
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. Let's move on to work by Palaniappan. So obviously you're acquiring works by artists based in Chennai as well. And I don't know if you want to talk about any of these works.
I think Palaniappan is absolutely phenomenal artist, and I've been following his work through the years, but it's very difficult to actually find his work, because he's all over the place, and he's teaching most of the time. And I'm very fortunate that I had the opportunity to buy some of his work, some earlier on, and some from some recent auctions, and he's very fine, and I think it would be nice if more of his work is exhibited all over the country.
Yeah. And here you have again these Asian cabinets, which you seem to have across all your homes, and some Victorian light fittings. I want to also talk about this interesting work by Balasubramaniam, you seem to have a lot of his works. And is this something you commissioned by him, or is this something you came across in a gallery and then acquired? Because obviously this is now permanent. And I want to just talk a little bit about commissions right across your homes, from this Balasubramaniam and then something completely different, which is this sort of Madhubani painting. Yeah.
Well, Bala is a very long story, and we probably don't have time for that now. Okay. Sharon called me up one many decades ago again, saying that, Rajshree, I've stumbled upon this artist who's absolutely fabulous, and he's so simple, and he's shown me some works, and said, would you like to encourage him? I always think that, as art lovers, we need to encourage good young artists. When Sharon said that and showed me some of his drawings and sketches then, he came from a very simple background. I went over to Chennai, Sharon and I met with Bala, and he's remained a very dear friend. And I'm so happy to see that his growth trajectory in the art world is really, he's done well for himself. So this was, I didn't commission him. He had made this, and that's his body. That is him sitting on a chair. And and I've always liked tribal art and supporting tribal artists. They have very few platforms to show their skills, and they really, really need support from society. And this was done about 30 years ago. And again, he was an award winner. And he came and lived in my house for almost 6 months with his wife and his children. And it was delightful to have that family. We could barely communicate. And I gave him oil paints for this. And he wasn't used to this. His first tryst with working with oil paints. And it stayed on the wall untouched for 30 years now.
Yeah. So from contemporary art to non-metropolitan art to, I guess we'll go forward to look at something quite different, which is this work by Janet Eckelman in your garden. So it's not just, I mean, I guess it's not just local artists, but artists. Janet, I think, is she from Boston? Is she from Boston?
Yes, she's from Boston, yes. Yeah. She's currently at she's also teaching there.
So this is just some images of the work being installed, I guess. So can you tell us about this work a little bit?
Okay, so Janet came on a Fulbright scholarship to Coimbatore, and she again lived in my house and experimented working with fishing nets. And she had, just before coming to me in Coimbatore, she was working in Chennai, staying in a fishing village, and working with these moving forms that she's so well known for. Now she's a very acclaimed artist. And she wanted to work with the temple brick layers. So these bricks were free form, in free form bricks made especially for her work. So she worked with kilns in or around Coimbatore, and we sourced fishermen who would come and stay in my house and work on my gardens in the lawns. And my daughter was very young then, Aishwarya, and she became Janet's little helper, and she learned a lot from Janet. And we'd sit there, watch the fishermen weaving the nets, and then lift them. And she's acknowledged the work on her website. Okay. She did not only this, she did even larger work at my home. She really lived here for about a year.
Now this is something quite different, and it's by Mia Westerlund Rusen. So tell us about how you came to commission this piece.
Amrita, if I have to tell you a story, because for me, every work of mine has a lovely story behind it.
So should we move on?
Makes it so special. But to make it very short, Mia Westerlund Rusen is one of the last artists that Leo Castelli showed. So she's of that repute. She's an amazing artist, as you can see from this work. So she came to work again on a Fulbright scholarship to work at the Theosophical Society in Chennai and do one of these structures. Well, the Theosophical Society thought this was too contemporary for their campus. So Mia was very upset. And of course, you know, any artist coming to Madras, then Madras would contact Sharan. So she contacted Sharan and said, what do I do now? And Sharan calls me and says, you know, Rajshree, you're the only person I know who will, you know, who will help this artist. You know, can she come and work in your house because you've got a lot of land? I said, Sharan, I'm leaving the next day to Vietnam for 3 months because I'm working on a project there. She said, oh, never mind, you just meet her this evening. She'll come to Coimbatore. So Mia arrives, and she's just such an extraordinary, lovely human being with such great sensibility. And I said, Mia, the house is all yours. Do what you want. I gave her the civil engineer who works for me and said, you take care of her, give her whatever material she needs. I come back 3 months later, and Mia's already gone to Pondicherry. She's been looking at the kilns there. She's spoken to Ray and Deborah Mika, and she's casted those panels, you know, in that style that they make it in Pondicherry. And the red earth is from Pondicherry, and half the building was done. And it's truly, truly a very unique piece.
I'm going to move you on. We were looking at this very minimal piece that Mia had made for you, to some more kind of minimal and contemporary younger artists that you've acquired. So I just want to show a few images. This is from Rana Begum's first show with us in Bombay.
Yes, Amrita, and I fell in love with that work of Rana Begum's. It was the most spectacular work in your show, and I'm deeply grateful that you had so many suitors for it in Bombay. And when I asked you for it, you were, you know, you were.
I was thrilled.
Your sister, Priya, both of you, you know, Priya was very nice to let me have it.
No, we're delighted it's with you. And then even younger artists, Teja Gavankar, who you've recently acquired, and Shine Shivan. And I just wanted to use these images to kind of wrap up the section on art, because we've got quite a lot to get through. I just want to say just a few things that I feel really pull your collection together. It seems to be a collection of so many opposites in a way. You have works that are really minimal, works that are really over the top. You've got works that are very colorful, works that are very restrained and monochrome. You have kitsch elements, classical elements, contemporary elements, modern elements, metropolitan. It's really a wonderful kind of mix, and the magic is how you really put it all together, which is absolutely wonderful. And I've had the privilege of staying with you in most of your homes and enjoying it. So I just want to quickly move you on to your kind of shift from art to design and your collaboration with Aishwarya. So I want to know what really inspired you to establish this platform. I want to know a little bit about what it's been like working with family. I also want you to talk a little bit about how IDF in general, how it's positioned in India vis-a-vis other kind of design initiatives that are run by larger media houses like El Deco and AD, etc. So I just cycle through some images, and perhaps you can just talk us through some of them.
Okay, so IDF was started in 2012 because I had this nagging passion in my mind that there wasn't enough awareness about design in India. And design was largely perceived to be luxury and elitist. And I always believe that design is and always will have to be democratic. Design has to be meaningful for people. And in India, it was always perceived to be elitist because people associated the word design with handbags and shoes and all the luxury
Fashion,
items.
yeah.
But design, per se, design wasn't discussed the way it is abroad. So in 2012, Aishwarya, my daughter, who's extremely creative, was back from her studies in America. And I said, well, I needed help. And we started the first India Design Forum in 2012 called The Power of Design, which was for 2 days at Delhi. And thereafter, 2013, we called it Design Matters. And that was for 2 days at Mumbai at the NCPA. 2016, we had IDF in Mumbai again called Empowering Through Design. And then we did Make in India. We were invited by the government of India to do a full day conference during the Make in India. And we called it Make in India. And then 2018, we had Disruptive Design in Bengaluru, which was very focused on the new age design, because Bangalore was much into the IT and technology. So we had Accenture, we had all these people, and Google and so on, presenting there. And then we had 2019, the government of Telangana asked us to write the proposal to bring in the World Design Organization's annual general conference to Hyderabad. We wrote the proposal, won the bid against Beijing, and brought all these amazing designers from all over the world to Hyderabad, and we called it Humanizing Design, because we felt that that was very, very relevant. And we worked with several designers, and we presented something called, the Lou Cafe, which was for the public.
Yeah, I'm just going to go through some. Shall I just cycle through these images, or do you want to talk about images specifically?
Well, I mean, I'd like to say that we work with industry associations, we work with the government, with the policy makers, because it's the only way you can spread the awareness to design. And you can see here, Mr. Amitabh Kant, who's the CEO of Niti Aayog, CII, who's always been a partner. NID is always partnered as well. We've also partnered until recently with Architectural Digest. They've gone off and done their own thing. So now we are completely, free as far as media is. We work with all media. So this is a very interesting project.
This is, I just wanted you to talk a little bit about the social dimension of IDF, as you said, very early on. I mean, obviously I showed some images of Subodh Gupta speaking at the conference, of Thomas Heatherwick and others, celebrity designers from around the world speaking. But I think this is part of of your design initiative that I find really very interesting. Yeah.
Yes, it's very meaningful. I started off by saying design has to be democratic. And therefore, I explained to you about the Lou Cafe. We worked very closely with the British Council, and we did this project, and with Jane Withers, and she designed the Lou Cafe, where, this can be replicated all over the country, where it's a toilet that can be used, kept clean, maintained, and pays for its own maintenance by the public. That was already has rolled out in Hyderabad. They have more than 12 Lou Cafes already now. And then we did Creators for a Cause. This year, when COVID struck, we decided at IDF that we needed to give back. And we wrote to all our speakers over the last few years, participated. And then we said that, give me a small video so we could put it out, and we could, ask the audience to contribute directly to Akshay Patra. So Akshay Patra, through Akshay Patra and through our efforts, through the initiative of IDF, we managed to collect quite a tidy sum of money, which went directly to feed the migrant workers.
Yeah. I've also noticed with your design forums, art is always a very integral part of it. So you've invited artists to speak at the design forum. You've also done collaborative projects with museums like this one, which is a collaboration between IDF, the Singapore High Commission, and Bhaudaji Lad.
Yes,
and then you've taken it beyond beyond India. So this is, I believe this is in Sri Lanka.
Yes, we've done one international conference in Sri Lanka, which was giving a Lifetime Achievement Award to Philip Stark, which was a deeply, memorable moment for us at IDF. It's not easy to get Philip Stark and actually give him a Lifetime Achievement Award. And the conference was very interesting, working in another country with their own design fraternity and being able to understand those influences. Although we are all in Asia, it was very different. Also, we brought in artworks to the Bhaudaji Lad Museum from Singapore's most renowned, revered living artist. He's 98 years old. And one of the works that we brought, he couldn't travel, of course, but one of the works we showed was something he had done just a few months ago. The man is still painting at 98 and doing some extraordinary work. So I believe that IDF has to work on cross-cultural, relationships. And also it is about the soft power that we need to encourage, because we have to think larger, and I don't like putting barriers between art, architecture, design, because the creative community is one creative community, and to me there have to be these meaningful crossovers.
Yeah. And finally, I just want you to talk a little bit about your amazing project for London Design Biennial at Somerset House in 2016, where about 36 nations from 6 continents were invited to present installations on the theme of utopia by design. And this is a presentation that you curated and collaborated on. Not only did you show it in London, but you then eventually traveled it to Delhi and showed it in Bikaner House, I think.
Yes.
So tell us something about the significance and the challenges of staging an event like this at an international forum, and and the response that you had to it. And I'll just cycle through some images.
Okay, it was a proud moment for me as an Indian to be the first participation, an official government endorsed participation of any creative nature at an international biennial. This was the London's inaugural design biennial, and it was we put our foot in, IDF put its foot in and said India has to be represented. At the end of the day, India cannot go unrepresented in the UK. And you see, design in India comes under the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. So I went to meet the minister and said that we need to do this. We need to put India on the map, on the international design map. So, and the minister said, yes, go ahead. And I worked with CII, the Confederation of Indian Industry. And we went through all the processes where you need to get endorsed by the government. And in 3 months, we had to do it. So I flew to London. I saw the most amazing space at Somerset House, not quite understanding what costs it would take to actually build something of the magnitude that I envisioned. Because for me, India is my country. I'm so proud to be Indian. We can't be in a tiny little place. We are a large country. It was designed by Utopia. So we called it Chakraview. I sat down with Suman Jaikrishna, who was simply amazing. Sumant and I worked very closely together. He brought in all the inputs, and Sumant is large and expansive in his expression, colorful as India is. We brought in several artists, Rutwa Trivedi, and I mean, just so many people. And, Hanif, Qureshi, just amazing people. And, the logos that you see on the sides are all, hand-painted logos that he had shot from all over the country. So we needed to show.
We're out of time.
No. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so the steel, and we called it chakra view because how do you explain India, simply? India is very complex and India's utopias are multiple. So we had to portray the noise of India, the diversity of India. So you see these amazing logos that signify the diversity of the languages of India. And they're all loosely hung from the ceiling. And you see these chakras because India is a progressive nation. So like the chakras take you from one level to the other of progression, we portrayed India, as a progressive, growing, proud nation. And that's what chakra view is all about. And the floors are absolutely mirror finished steel floors. And what was to me most heartening was, because it was there for 40 days, there would be these, English people or elderly people on wheelchairs, unable to walk. They would come there and they would just swing around in their wheelchairs and tell me that they feel so happy because this exhibit made them so alive. And there had people coming in there, standing there solitarily and saying they felt this feeling of spirituality when they stood there. So you could see, I mean, it did many things for us. For me personally, it's been my most project that I hold emotionally very close to my heart. I was representing my country in such a large international biennale. And secondly, just the noises, the voice of India, the diversity of India. We had the tape recordings of Pupul Jayaka and Pandit Nehru and all of these people playing the soundtrack day and night.
Okay, I think we're almost out of time, or we've gone well beyond our time. So I want to invite Sharon to come back in, and for anybody who has questions, thank you, Rajshree, for that. It was absolutely amazing to see all the different projects and how you developed IDF as well. Yeah, so if we can make any questions, and then I will slowly fade.
Yeah, hello, and I'm back again. Thank you so much. This was just wonderful. Thank you, Rajshree, and thank you, Amrita. I'm seeing a lot of comments in the chat box which have said they've enjoyed it, an hour well spent, etc. Absolutely well spent. Now, Rajshree, I have a question for you from Yamini Mehta. And Yamini wants to know about the position of Indian design internationally, because the V&A did an exhibition of Chinese design. And she says, where do we stand as India in terms of Indian design outside of India? How would you address that issue?
Okay, so I think we still have a long way to go. We do have very good, design sensibilities. However, our design legacy comes from craft. It is not contemporary design. So, to use Indian craft and to take it to a contemporary usage of design requires a lot of design thinking. And I think that design thinking is still fundamental in India. The reason is we have very few design schools for a country as large as ours. We have very few design schools, and now NID has come with several campuses. We have very many private initiatives, Yamini, and but let's not forget that we've had designers like Nipa Doshi Levian and Satyendra Pakale, who have all become global designers. They grew up and studied in India at NID, at IITs, and now they live abroad, they work abroad, but they all carry with them the deep Indian sense of design aesthetics. Also, we are so diverse in our aesthetics. So it's going to take a while, but I think you have brands like Napatori, you have, Teapoy, Spandana Gopal, who's doing brilliant work. You have, I can think of several names, but yes, I think it's happening, and I think it'll happen sooner. Of course, you have design in all the realm of virtual design. You have lots of that going on with, movie making techniques, VFX, and all of this, which is overwhelming.
Thank you. That's lovely. And so there was another question from a lady who wanted to know, how do you actually go about buying your art? Because it's something that you do on your own. I think what you meant is that you don't use advisors. I think it is really your heart and your soul, right? But
I
maybe
think
you want to talk a little bit.
Charan, you knowing me so well and my trajectory over the last 30 years, you've answered that question.
Yeah. So what next? What's going to happen? What have you got in mind? Tell us your.
I have a question, Rajshree.
I continue to support younger artists. During this COVID, I've identified some young artists, and I have kept buying, supporting them, introducing them to friends to follow and buy. I think, as someone who loves art and who sincerely feels that we need to patronize artists, and I think the contemporary artists really need to have more support from the collector community. We still see that, during COVID, the moderns have been really going well, but I feel that somewhere the awareness of contemporary art hasn't picked up as much. And I would really, for me, personally, I would like to do, more shows. My ideas of building a static museum space in Coimbatore has gone through a serious rethink, because I don't think we have a critical mass in India that could just walk in and enjoy and understand it. I think we need to do more. So I'm thinking have a space that is a movie space or a moving collection. Have one space, but have moving collections. Bring collections in from it. I have lots of workshops and on architecture, on design, on art. So people understand it's not one thing. It's about creativity and intellect to understand what is necessary for a nation like us. We had it. But what is it for us in contemporary times? How do we make a society understand that's as important? Creativity is as important, if not the most important thing that can see you through the next decade of growth.
I think that's wonderfully said. I think we've run way out of time. It's 7:43, so I have to wrap up and say thank you so much, Rajshree, and thank you so much, Amrita. It's been fantastic having you both. You bring such credibility to our platform, Tap India, and thank you for being with us, and thank you for supporting us. Thank you, and thank you all for listening in. And this will be a recording that will be available. And those of you who want to ask other questions, please email them to us at Tap India, and we'll be happy to get you the answers from both Rajshree and Amrita. Okay, thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amrita. Thank you, Team Tap India. Thank you. It's been for me as well. Thank you.
Bye. Good night. Bye.
Bye.